me get a drink of water here. Okay, now, non-exclusive rules. The decision tables that we've been looking at so far were such that at any given point in time, only one column, only one rule would apply to a set of conditions. It is also possible to have one or more what are called non-exclusive rules, and I'll show you an example of this. Let's suppose that we were testing credit card processing, end-of-month processing of credit card. And if you have purchased money, you made a purchase, whether money or an object, in foreign currency. Many credit cards, for example, Citibank does this, which is a source of great frustration to me. If there is foreign exchange, there's an exchange fee that gets charged. Just boom, you get automatically hit with it. Doesn't matter what else is true of your account, you're going to get hit with that exchange fee right now. If you carried a balance from the previous invoice, you will get charged interest. Doesn't matter what else might be true. And if your payment was late last time, will you get charged a late fee? Yes, you will get charged a late fee. Right now, see, none of those things might be true, so none of these rules might apply. One of those things might be true. Just one of the columns applies. Two of those things might be true, and that could be one with two, one with three, or two with three. So there are three different combinations there that could apply, right? And then all three of them could be true. They're independent, and they can combine with each other. So watch for that. Usually you'll notice, you'll see in these kind of independent non-exclusive rule columns where there'll be a single condition or maybe two conditions or something that are specified as having to be yes or no, and then everything else is a don't care. And similarly in the actions, there's a single action which is to be taken or not taken based on that particular condition or combination of conditions, and everything else is a dash, which means these actions are not determined by this set of conditions. Now, what do you do with this? I mean, obviously there's a lot of combinational problems that could occur here, combinational tests that could occur. Well, we want to avoid testing a lot of combinations. That's the combinatorial explosion is the bane of the tester's life. We're going to talk about that in the context of pairwise testing and domain analysis, probably in some future webinar, advanced testing webinar. But for the moment, we're not focused on combinations. So what you want to typically do is first you test every rule by itself. And you do it completely independently, so that no conditions that are not related to that rule are met. In other words, there can't be any situation where some other condition that is not specified in the rule, in other words, it was one of these dash guys, inadvertently is responsible for triggering the action. You test the rule clean, and then you consider testing of combinations, but again, avoid the combinatorial explosions. Maybe you test some subset of the combinations, and then one combination where everything that could combine together does combine together, and use risk to pick which combinations to test. Okay, so that is decision tables. And so we've now looked at decision tables and cause-effect graphs and their use for testing. As I said, these are useful for testing of internal business logic and applications, and they can become quite sophisticated and complex. What you've seen are small examples of decision tables. I've seen them 40, 50 columns wide before, so they can definitely grow. They're still much more complex than, or excuse me, much simpler, much more straightforward than a prose explanation, a text explanation of the similar logic would be. And that's true for a lot of these techniques that we're going to look at, state diagrams and decision tables and use cases and domain analysis and those sort of things, that the text description of this stuff is a lot more difficult to read and often a lot longer than the tables themselves. So decision tables are a great way to test detailed business rules in isolation. Once we get into combinational situations, that starts to become problematic, and as I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later. It also, again, remember that we're talking about transactional stuff here, where things that have happened before don't affect what's happening now. We're going to look at other techniques that are not limited in their usefulness to transactional situations in some subsequent webinars. And nonetheless, that limitation of transactionalness applies to many situations in testing and IT systems, and so these techniques are quite often very useful. Okay, so I'm going to put up the advertisement as always during the Q&A session. Now I'm get the Q&A session open here. I'm going to once again try to deal with this cumbersome interface that GoToWebinar decided to put on their Q&A panel now. But let's see. I get a question here from Deb Vernon. Where on the website is the slides? So if you're on the website, you should see a page that says resources, and I believe the webinar slides are on the basic library page. So yeah, just confirm that. So just go to resources, basic library, and you should be able to find the slides there. Okay, let's see. We have a question here. Now this is interesting. I can't see who asked this. Ah, okay. Question here for Payush. Hi Payush, how are you? Let's see, in the case of use case-based approach, do we still need to use this technique, decision tables? I'm assuming this should be covered there and hence not required separately. I think, Payush, it's probably safe to say that that the opportunities to combine decision table testing and use case testing are somewhat limited. Not that they couldn't occur, I just can't think of it off the top of my head when I've ever had to do that. Certainly quite possible, quite frequent to combine the use case approach with equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis. But yeah, usually those are independent. So I'd say it's probably going to be applying one or the other, and I think that's probably also true of the state-based techniques that you would tend to apply one or the other. There might be techniques where you'd say, well, the use case is a path through the state diagrams, and then therefore I'm going to look at sequences of paths and so forth. But that strikes me as a little far-fetched. So yeah, I'd say, Payush, you're right that these are separate, and we will talk more about use cases in a subsequent webinar. Comment from Alexander. I followed this for a number of years. You do a very good job of explaining the concept. Thank you very much for that, Alex. I appreciate it. That's one of the things I'm trying to accomplish with this series of advanced software test techniques webinars is